Thank the maker. Good morning, KCL, and welcome to Thank the Maker, KCL's only creativity talk show. I'm your host, Clay Ballard, and today we're going to be talking about improv, acting, and a few other things with your resident Jack Shep. Now, to those listening, you might know him from another radio show that he has on the KCL radio network. I don't know much about it, but we'll talk about it over the next hour. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. We're coming to you live from the top of Bush House Southeast. And just to explain the show really quickly, we like to bring creatives on air and talk to them about their creative process. So yeah, I'm your host, Clay Ballard, and we hope you stick with us over the next hour as we talk through this. We'll be right back. Jack, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's Wednesday. It's been a busy week.
Yeah.
But yeah, how are you? Thank you for coming so early.
No, it's all right. Yeah. I was saying it's good excuse to get me out of bed, to be honest.
Yeah, true. So, do you have no classes today whatsoever?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I have Wednesdays off.
That makes a lot of
you're welcome. This is my one lay-in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, I know you from Running Amok. Mm-hmm. We perform on KCL's improv troupe here. But you're also involved in a lot of scenes across KCL, a lot. From like King's Players to KCL Radio. What else are you doing these days?
Yeah, I've done some Shakespeare stuff while I've been here as well. And,
right.
I did a TED Talk last semester.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too. We'll get to that.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I just love spreading myself thin.
Yeah.
Love distraction from the abyss, you know.
And you're studying film here at KCL?
Yeah, like film studies.
Film studies, right.
So it's like it's like a theoretical film degree. So
yeah.
Less practical, more like it's like an English degree but with films instead of books.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I've gotten to know like quite a few people in the film studies department, and it seems interesting. So what do you want to do with that degree if it's not practical? Because I'm asking myself the same question. I'm studying global media industries. It's not practical at all. It's all theoretical discussion of the industry.
Yeah.
What's your plan?
Well, I had like a massive dilemma about it because I wanted to do film, but like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do practical or theory, and I think it was like for me. Because the industry changes so regularly and so often, I was like, I didn't feel like I would get that much out of learning like the practical elements of it.
Right. Interesting.
And so doing a practical degree, I didn't feel like I would learn anything that I couldn't teach myself.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas like a theory degree, it just makes you so well versed.
No, that's an interesting like decision point, because you read online and there's like that. A famous website like No Film School that basically is like there's the debate of whether you go to film school or whether you just learn it yourself, and so you're in the camp of learning it yourself, but like getting this context from your academic degree.
It's like halfway, like
right.
I think it's been really valuable to learn about like film, air quotes,
right,
but I don't know, yeah, like I feel like it's like a weird sort of limiting parameter to learn like how to practically make film. You know?
Yeah, no, I that makes a lot of sense. Interesting. So on the acting front and on the improv front, really, how long have you been doing that? So I imagine your decision to come to KCL and study film studies was quite separate from that. You're not studying acting.
Yeah.
But have you been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, so I was very precocious when I was a youngster, loved attention.
Yeah.
Obviously. And I just have it's always sort of been like a vocation of mine, which is weird because with acting, it's like a lot of people realise that vocation really young. And it's like, you know, some people, their vocation will be like, you know, architecture or something. But like acting is something that people start vocationally doing when they're like a child. It's like kind of weird. But yeah, I did some like professionally acting when I was in my early teens.
Really?
Like, yeah, like I had an agent and the whole shebang.
That's amazing.
But I stopped because I wanted to like focus on school. Which is hilarious. But yeah, I was sort of debating between like the drama school route and then the film route.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like the most devoid of practical acting uni. Like there's no acting course here or anything. So, but yeah, I've just sort of always been interested in it, and it took a back seat because I was like, you know what, I want to get into filmmaking. But actually coming to uni, I've realised that like performing sounds so stupid, but that is something I just really will always enjoy the most, you know.
Yeah, and that's something I think I've observed across like your involvement at KCL, right? You host your radio show, you perform on stage for improv and for these theater productions. And there's no shame in performing and wanting a little attention.
Yeah, I mean, we all want a bit of attention in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just sort of it seeps its way into everything I do, to be honest.
Yeah. The TED too.
Yeah, basically.
So I guess transitioning to improv then, how did you discover improv here at KCL, or was it always on your radar?
Like here, really. I mean, I was like into improv when we did it at high school, but obviously it's very different because it's not in a serious construct. It's just like for fun.
Sure.
And then I came to King's and I sort of joined on a whim. And it's ended up being like the most enriching thing I've done here. And it's completely I now have such an interest in working in comedy, and like it's made me realize like I can be funny, you know?
Yeah. I feel like this is so many people's stories too, because it was on my radar in like Whose Line Is It Anyways form.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But then when I went to undergrad, like I auditioned on a whim as well and made it, and then you kind of realize that like you can be funny and you can perform and you can make people laugh, and it's amazing.
And yeah, like I mean now that like the comedy route is my biggest interest in, really, like creative endeavors. And it's crazy because it's like this. Before I came to uni, I would never have said that, but it's completely like rewired my brain. Weirdly.
That's cool.
Not to deep it or anything.
So yeah, I guess I have a question then, because this is something I've thought about a lot, but improv kind of as a wide, diverse scene does really focus on comedy. Do you think there's something being lost there? Because there's dramatic improvisation. It's like a tool that people use behind the scenes as well. But most performance improv features the funny. Yeah, and it makes sense in practice because a lot of improv is relying on the mistakes to build the content almost. Do you think that there is a market for like serious dramatic improvisation?
I think, yeah, probably. I mean, I think the problem is that when it's improvised, it's obviously there's like an unprofessional nature to it, which is then kind of leads into comedy really well. But like I've seen serious improv before, and I've done it, like as you say, like a rehearsal tool, and it's not very engaging to watch, but it's very engaging to do.
Right.
But I've seen like not Herodian, that's a private school in London. Like that improv style where they do like a play.
Oh, the Herald?
The Herald, yeah. Herodian. It's like I've seen that done where like a good portion of it has been serious scenes. Yeah. And it always feels kind of like jarring, but like it is interesting. Yeah. I know there's like an improv comedy night somewhere in the world where they do like one serious scene at the end of every night, and then it's like it plays out like but it's just weird because it's like unless you do an argument or some kind of emotional thing, it's never going to be that dramatic or engaging. Yeah. And then it can feel stupid because it's like, you killed my dad, and then you have to seriously react to that. Yeah. And it's like jarring.
You brought up a really interesting point that for serious improv in your mind, and feel free to correct me if I misinterpreted, but it's interesting for the performer, but not for the audience. I think in a lot of ways, and some other actors that I've talked to have this perception about improv as a whole. And even if you like look at improv theaters, so I used to live in DC, and I performed a bit with the Source Theater there, which was the local improv theater. most people coming to shows are other improvisers.
Yeah.
And so to me, I always had this issue with it where it's this very insular environment where improvisers go to watch improv and vice versa. And like the majority of funds for that theater in particular, and for a lot of theaters, are from classes they put on, not from tickets sold.
Right.
And so it does seem like this never-ending tool and cycle for improvisers as opposed to, as a regular performance piece. And it certainly gets out of that, like in Chicago and New York, but on the local scene in other cities, it doesn't seem to elevate past that.
Yeah, because I feel like it can be very self-indulgent.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Yeah, but then again, like, I went to the Edinburgh Fringe last summer, and one of the best shows I saw was Snort, which is like this New Zealand improv collective.
Yeah.
And their approach to improv is like, it's quite similar to what we do, actually. It's like very like low rules, high, just like chill.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to watch because they don't care really about, upholding anything. There's no like massive technique. I mean, they're all amazing at it.
Sure.
And they've just got a TV show like on TVNZ, which is like BBC New Zealand.
That's awesome.
And so I guess it's kind of changing, at least in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Where it's becoming like actually something for audiences because they're trying to be funny for audiences. It's like a reverse thing, but definitely feel that with like it being self-indulgent, and also the sense that like it's comedians and actors who are just getting that little bit of adrenaline, or attention's the wrong word, but any way they can.
Yeah, no, I that you bring up a good point too. Again, that improv is like such a feeder for professional things, but it still seems that the end product of improv never seems to come out like these guys are getting a TV show. I don't know if it's improvised, but I'm sure that like with a lot of TV shows that come out of the New York improv scene or Saturday Night Live, they use improv as a tool for creation, but then the final product is still scripted in a way.
Well, that's like a very interesting point. Like improv is kind of a writing tool. Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting when people use improv and then that's their finished product.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's maybe the thrill of it. It's like watching the process.
Well, see, that's what I've always really enjoyed about improv is it's a tightrope dance when you're watching it. And when you go to an improv show, I always liken it to going to like a fight, right? You don't know who's going to win. You don't know if things are going to go bad. You don't know. It's like stagecraft, but like there's a high chance of things going wrong.
Yeah, right.
And there's obviously appeal in that, like with the play that goes wrong, that's its front central gimmick. But that's what I've always loved about it, is this chance for it to mess up. And when actors can like thread the needle, it's like, holy shit. Yeah.
Well, that's it as well. It's like very high reward if it works.
Yeah.
More so than like anything that could be pre-planned. Like when I saw these New Zealanders, it was like...
What was the name of them again?
It was called Snort.
Snort.
Snot. Sorry. I'm not doing a good job in
my American accent versus this.
And like some of the stuff, it would just thread together so well, and you'd be like, this is just genius. And the like thrill you get, I mean, it's the same thrill you get as an audience member as a performer, I suppose, where it's like, oh yes, the stars have aligned.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have a favorite camp of improv? So there's like Chicago, Second City, right? Of like very naturalism, like truth and comedy, define the characters and ground the scene, and the rest of the work will happen. Or do you tend to find yourself in the camp of like New York, UCB, game, chase the beats of the scene? Do you fall into a camp, or do you think there's a middle ground, or what?
Well, I feel like we definitely tend to lean into the like UCB chase the game thing. At least that's how we were kind of like taught to do it.
Yeah.
Where you find like a interesting game and it's very like da 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 da, and if it's boring, just sweep, like move on, catch the beat. But I definitely don't mind like those slower beats and like chasing it. But then again, because we have I have like a British sensibility to it, so it ends up being, I guess, kind of a mesh of like that UCB beat a minute, which I find like I prefer comedy to be like. And do everyone hear my clicks? But then like also kind of like awkwardness and slowness.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
it.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even really thought how like British comedian tendencies would blend into improv.
Well, you probably noticed when we do improv, I do an American accent like a lot.
Yeah.
And it's because like I find it so much easier to slip into that like UCB quick
Right.
like
Interesting.
Blair thing because it's such an American style.
Oh, it is. Yeah, yeah.
And then like if it's less that, then a British accent will work. But I don't like almost all the time.
Yeah.
Mainly because also we have a lot of Americans, and I don't want to be like, and their British friend arrives, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess my next question then is just about running amok. Have you like what am I trying to ask here? Do you want? You're in your which year are you here?
Second. Yeah.
Okay. And
Halfway.
are you hoping to stick with running amok for the entirety of KCL? Do you want to continue improv after KCL in like a different troupe, or yeah? What are your thoughts on like continuing this as kind of a career path?
I don't think I would pursue it as a career just because fickle.
Yeah.
But definitely comedy. Like that's what I've got out of it. I definitely plan on staying with it while I'm here at uni, and I would definitely like join a troupe. But the thing is like the London comedy scene is very competition based, and so it lends itself really well if you're a stand-up and if you're into sketch
Right.
comedy. But like if you're an up-and-coming sketch group, you know that an up-and-coming improv group, there's not really anywhere that you're going to perform.
Yeah.
So, and then there's like the free association, which is fab, but like you have to basically pay your way in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like
this goes to the whole like insular thing. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
And I've never been a fan of like stand up myself. I've liked sketch, particularly because improv like feeds so much into it as like a writing tool. But yeah, it seems that outside of the States, there's not really like tracks for improvisers except to like use their skills in other kind of writing
Basically,
venues. Yeah. This is just a personal question, but do you have any memorable improvised scenes that you've been in that have just been like, that was so much fun?
Yeah, we did one recently that still makes me laugh, which was like I can't remember what the content of it was, but it was like I was playing a sick child who's a philanthropist had come to give him money, and then it just turned because the line was that he wouldn't let me die, and the flip that was that I wanted to die actually, and the philanthropist was this like cruel billionaire that wouldn't let me succumb to my illness, which is just such a funny concept. I feel like that would make such a funny sketch.
Yeah. Have you had any of? I mean, I'm sure you have, but I wonder if you have any specific examples. But have you had any like improv scenes turn into sketches for you? Because I know you do sketch as well.
Yeah.
You and Elias were working on a sketch competition. Did that happen?
Yeah, we did.
How'd that go?
We didn't get through, but it was just like we shouldn't have got through. I mean, we were like rookies, right?
Yeah.
But it was super fun. It was like me, my friend Elias Reichel, Mr. Perfecto, and Morgan Bakanowski, and we wrote like a bunch of sketches, and then we had to like pick a few that we wanted to run with. And I'm trying to think if any of them came from improv. Definitely like improvised concepts. Like the one that we did was it was like the concept of the scene was it was like an improv workshop. And we were playing a game of like ball toss with an imaginary ball, but then one of the people, like I kept insisting that they weren't catching the ball, even though it wasn't a real ball. And then at the end, he's like, well, I have the ball. He throws it and it's a brick, and he like kills someone. And so I guess that's like a very improv heavy concept. And we like improvised it when we were writing it.
Yeah, you see that too in a lot of TV shows and movies and stuff. So many of them come from an improv background that inevitably improv features in their work. Like The Office, you know, there's Michael Scott's one of his character traits that he does shitty improv.
Yeah, right. Well, because I guess it's like improv is also famously insufferable if it's bad, and and anyone that loves attention also does improv, and it can just be the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things where people that do improv fully respect all the hate it gets. They're like, yeah, no, it really is awful.
Yeah, again, it's such a strange like middle ground between like art form in and of itself and tool for writing and tool for the actor. But yeah, on that note, do you have any memorable flops on stage where it was just like, get me out of here now?
I mean, I've had a few where like someone will come on and it just won't be working, and you'll be like, get me out. I do this thing where because I'm into that, quick beat thing, I'll come on and I'll say a stupid one-liner and then I'll just want to leave. But
Yeah.
obviously you can't do that. So I'll come on. We did this one ages ago where the word was password, and I thought it would be, and I'm right, it is funny, it's just terrible improv. If I went on and I was like, what's the password? And then she said it and I was like, yep. And that was it. I just let her through.
Yeah.
But then obviously that's just awful, because then we just stood there like with nothing to do. So stuff like that where I've like been selfish.
Yeah.
But
I have a really bad tendency of asking questions. Like, that's one of the rules that you kind of learn early on when you're learning improv is don't ask questions, because what it does is it puts the kind of opus of creation on your scene partner instead of you. And my God, though, like, I feel like in my awkward teen years, all I drilled into myself was like, just ask questions, be an interested person to seem interesting. And then you get up on stage and try and like be all relaxed and conversational, and you're just like deadpanning, like, so what are you? So what are we doing? So yeah. Oh God.
I've been there,
Yeah.
That's so funny. Seem interested, and you're makes you an interesting person.
Yeah. It's good advice in conversation, but on stage, I don't
less
think
so in improv.
Yeah, because people are just looking like, this guy has nothing to offer at all. Here's a very specific question: chairs on the stage or no chairs on the stage?
I think chairs on the stage. Yeah, why not? Because it's just like,
back that up. Give me some evidence-based arguments here.
I feel like every now and then it's just fun to sit.
Yeah.
I get tired, my knees hurt. And also just like, why not? Because I feel like if someone had a conceit where they would use it, it wouldn't hurt if they weren't used,
Yeah. The reason
is that like improv discourse about chairs?
No, it's just, I feel like it's a common debating point. Like, yeah, maybe it is discourse, but like people lean on them, like literally and figuratively.
Oh, right,
you know, because if you sit in a chair, the action can't happen in a scene if you're glued to it.
We've had stupid scenes where the chairs have become like ridiculous, and it's been funny, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, we had one where it was like a restaurant, and the chairs with the weird tables, so we were like crawling all over them and stuff.
Right. They're great tools if used
if you use them abstractly.
Yeah.
Or really, I guess if you use them abstractly or you use them really literally. But then if there's the middle ground where it's rocky, like if it's a car, can sometimes be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Then now you just have a car in the middle of the stage.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, again, you're like, it's good every now and then and again, but like when you keep using those chairs to like restrict the space, again, we're going way too deep.
Well, this chairs discourse is truly like buckling,
mind blowing. What is a common misconception about improv?
That it's bad, because it is bad.
I agree. Yes,
but it's like, I mean, it sounds big headed, but F it. I don't think we've ever done a show that's been like awful. Yeah, sure, we've had shows where it's been like, it wasn't really massively great tonight.
Right.
But like when we did our run at the Edinburgh Fringe, we did like 7 shows, and all of them are great. Like,
yeah.
Like, and the thing about improv is
you
can say that because it's like there's 7 other of you, and it's like even if you didn't think you were great, like sure, I had a couple where I was like rusty, but it's like, you lift your friends up, and if you think they're funny, then there's no reason it's not. But then again, it can suck, but it doesn't always. It would be fun to live in a world where people weren't terrified of seeing their friends do improv.
Yeah. And kind of going off that, is there a hard part about improv for you specifically? Like, some people get stage fright, some people can't come up with what to say. Are there any difficult bits in and of the art or sport of improv for you in particular?
Maybe I get too much in my head, like if I have a really pre-planned concept of how I want it to go, and then it's not that, I can be a bit like, oh no. Try getting that one kill a line in or something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's too much.
You're constantly drilled in during like training, like don't think, don't think, don't
Yeah,
think. But
right.
at the same time, I found improv like teaching so contradictory because it's like
Yeah.
don't think, but then it's also like identify the beat that you can cut on and identify the pattern that you
Right.
can. It's just like okay, and also if I just say the first thing that comes to my mind, like what if something really terrible comes out?
Yeah.
You know. We've all got our like subconscious biases. We don't want to lay those out on the stage, right?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be so messed up.
It's scary.
I think it's like you have to learn the rules to break them.
Yep.
So you sort of learn how to do it like riding a bike, and then you can forget about it. But once you have like the kind of tools, it's like just do what you want.
Yeah.
I find like the rule based improv really tiresome.
Yeah, I do too. I've always kind of thought of, and just to go back for a second, when I took my first improv class, which was after I'd auditioned in undergrad, I genuinely thought I was a much better improviser at the beginning than I was at the end of the class. And it's because I started limiting how my thinking and like subscribing to rules and
Right.
philosophies as opposed to being like my free rule breaking self in the beginning. Again, it's nice to have that structure, but when it becomes too structured, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, it definitely can get like, if you do it for too long, you get kind of like fatigue and like immunity to it as well.
Yeah.
The thrill of it, you're like, oh god.
I like to think of it as like you're training your instincts as opposed to like setting concrete boundaries that you can't cross over.
Yeah.
Like when a scene starts going to shit, you rely back on these things to get you through it. Anyways, we're going to take a quick break here and then come back to talk about more generally creativity. I also want to talk to you about your TED Talk.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll get to that. I can talk about this stuff for hours.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm talking about it like I'm some like veteran, but it's
Yeah, right?
That's the funny thing about it. I guess you sort of can because you just have to do it.
Yeah, and when you do a lot of it, which is quite common in improv, you just do it and do it and do it. Yeah, there's so many stories to tell and so many like lessons learned.
You feel like a weathered like expert, just like a student improviser.
Anyways, for my break, I always ask my guests for a song. If you wouldn't mind introducing the song to carry us through.
This song is Comme Si by Christine and the Queens. Because it's quite early, I thought it was a good vibe. And she's very like fun and fresh. And I saw her live last summer and it was amazing.
Where is she from?
She's French.
Cool.
And she does like a French version and an English version of every song.
Oh, that's
She's
really
legendary.
neat.
This is like half and half, this one.
Awesome. Well, this is Come See, not Come See this show, but Come See as in COMME.
Yeah, as in
space SI.
Le Français, yeah.
Yeah. Took me a minute to find it. Anyways, enjoy.
C'est une chanson, ça n'engage que nos prénoms, dans mes graves articulés. C'est ce que je me dis quand je termine ce couplet. Je sais que t'as dit non, effrayé par mes façons, mais quand même cette chanson est une pensée, moi qui sais te trouver. Tout vient par grand froid de ta bouche la baie. C'est comme si tu me mets plus fort, baby. C'est comme si tu me mets encore. C'est comme si tu peux presque le replay, c'est gâteau. Oh 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 oh. C'est comme si car tu reviens vers moi, baby. C'est comme si quand t'écoutes ma voix. C'est comme si tu peux presque le replay, c'est gâteau. Oh 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 oh. Galérienne, proche terminus. Plus personne pour être ému par un guide né de chaos. C'est ce que je me dis quand je pars en morceaux. Tu ne sais pas me regarder. me raconte. Ma langue est le seul corps qui vraiment compte. C'est comme si on s'aimait, tu l'aimais plus fort. C'est comme si on s'aimait, tu m'aimais encore. C'est comme si on s'aimait, je peux presque le reflet, c'est cadeau. Oh, 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 oh. C'est comme si on s'aimait, tu reviens vers moi, baby. C'est comme si on s'aimait, t'écoutes ma voix. C'est comme si on s'aimait, je peux presque le reflet, c'est cadeau. Oh, 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 oh. Tu me mets encore, 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 encore. Tu me mets encore, encore, encore. C'est comme si on s'aimait. 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 C'est comme si on s'aimait.
And we're back. Welcome back. We were just talking about radio shows and all the ones on KCL Radio. Which one were you just talking about?
Miriam's.
Yeah, Miriam. So
Yeah, it's called Laugh Track.
and hers is about comedy.
It's like about comedy, yeah.
Whereas Elias's, which runs Running Amok Radio, improvised radio,
Yeah.
is comedy.
Yeah, and it's like bits.
Yeah. Anyways, I was just talking with Jack. I love doing interviews. It's great, but it would be nice to like just kind of like kick back with the same people every week and joke around. But yeah. That was a really nice song. I'm going to throw that on my own
Yeah,
playlist.
it's a tune.
Come See by
Christine and the Queens.
Love it. Okay. Awesome. TED Talk. You did a TED Talk here.
I did.
Very impressive. Tell me about it. It was rooted in film. That's about all I know.
Yeah.
Give me the elevator pitch of your
Yeah.
stage pitch.
So it was about like film representation, and like spectatorship, and it's interesting because whenever I talk about it, I'm like, oh, it's stupid, because obviously A, I'm a student, and B, I just constantly play down everything I do.
Yeah.
But apart from improv, where I'm like, you know what, I am funny.
It is good artistic work
like
and should be
exception.
respected.
But yeah, it was about film representation, and the idea behind it was like the devalidation of film studies, because people think that films are sort of like a meaningless art. And I don't mean meaningless in like devoid of meaning, because obviously people think films are worthwhile. But more so that people think that the effects of film aren't like massively impactful on society. And so my kind of overarching argument was about the validity of like researching film representation and spectatorship models, and how like film studies was super important for that.
Yeah.
And like I gave this example of how when I came here, because King's is like, it's a bit of a weird place to study film because it's very, very like academic and prestigious, and everyone here is like doing biomed or like law or something. And if you do like a kind of like DOS degree, right, or like, do you know that term, DOS degree?
No.
I think the American term for it is like a Mickey Mouse degree.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I had to change that when I did the talk, because all the like international students that were running it were like, "What's a DOS degree?" But like a degree, just for the sake of a degree, like a fun degree.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think of the term, but like that's joked about a lot in the States because we've got like our liberal arts schools.
Exactly that.
Yeah, and you kind of you take a while to pick your degree, and then you pick it, and like yeah,
you pick what you think is going to be the easiest.
Yeah.
Which I didn't do. And like film studies here is actually pretty hard because they very much overcompensate to like academicize it, right? So it was all about like how I had it devalidated so much. Like, people would be like, oh, so you're doing a DOS degree, or people would be like, oh, that must be so fun. Like, I wish I was doing a fun degree, but no, I'm doing a real one. Like, oh.
Yeah.
And it was like, I kind of just went along with them. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's so stupid. I'm never going to get a job. No. But like, the talk was like the manifestation of me unlearning that self-deprecating.
Good for you.
Yeah. It was weirdly liberating. Like,
that makes me think of, have you watched Nanette on Netflix?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where you like, and probably too many, I'm making comparisons where I probably shouldn't be, but it's a Netflix special about this comedian that's been self-deprecating and then takes the stage to reclaim it as like a tool for self-empowerment, really.
It's like when you talk about those things in like any light, the vessel becomes like the mode of unlearning it. And like Nanette's a good example. I mean, very different content, but where it becomes like liberating for her, you know.
Yeah.
But by talking and addressing it, and mine was more sort of, I mean, comparing Nanette to my TED Talk about film representation.
It's Rocky okay. Terrain. I give you permission to do this.
Rocky Terrain. But yeah, like it was about like how film representation is tangible, and like anyone that would deny that was kind of an idiot. And then at the end, I was like, so next time someone asks me if I'm doing what I'm doing, like what I'm studying, I'll look them in the face and I'll like take a deep breath, and I will lie and say I do computer science instead. But like, you know, film representation, I spoke about like LGBT representation, and then like the Joker, fuck's sake, and then sorry, and
no, you're
like. I was waiting for a tough.
No.
I guess because it's like it's student radio, no one cares, but also it's the morning, so it's like wrong.
Now you're good.
But yeah, like Joker, people were like turning up to political protests in Beirut like dressed as Joker, and like how that man in America went into this theater like dressed as a Joker and like killed like over 10 people, and it was just like how do films have this like tangible in world effect? That's
super interesting. You, I think, would enjoy. So I'm in the cultural media and creative industries department here at King's, and I don't know if you're familiar with them much, but they do MA degrees, and they're expanding to make an undergrad degree next year. But they focus a lot on like audience studies, and not so much like textual analysis, like film studies is so often rooted in, but like industry analysis, which is really interesting when you look at like who makes films. So not only representation on the screen, but behind it, and then like also like just the outputs and why creative decisions are made, not necessarily for like creative goals, but like for this marketing territory, or we talk a lot about like Chinese co-productions. Like you get stupid productions like The Great Wall with Matt Damon. I don't know if you heard about that. But also you get like interesting like cultural crossovers as well. Like we wouldn't have seen Parasite. Which have you seen Parasite? By
Bong Joon-ho.
Yes, thank you. Should know this name. But yeah, with all these like cultural crossovers and like all these movements back behind the scenes on the industry level, we wouldn't have seen these like even like looking at Netflix with like things like Money Heist and these international shows that are getting exposure. So, anyways, you might find that interesting.
I find it interesting, like audience models and. I don't know, like, I mean, like I was saying, like, when there's this, like, weird shame about studying film studies, and a lot of people do have it, and it's funny to, like, play into, but at the same time, it's not healthy. Yeah. It extends to all people that do, like, BAs in this country, like anyone from, like, English to, like, you know...
for sure.
To, like, any kind of art-based subject.
It's a thing that needs to be addressed,
because
for sure.
It's, like, we live in such, like, a vocation-based, like, capitalist country, and people completely forget that degrees are supposed to be like enriching to you as a person, not just for the certificate you get at the end.
Right.
And it's so depressing, but like I refuse to give into it. But with audiences, it's like my biggest interest is like semiotic, like deep readings of like audience pleasing films or like terrible movies. Like I had this joke where I really wanted to write an essay about Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, because it had like such a profound effect on me as a child.
Was that directed by James Gunn, or was that the first one?
It was written by James Gunn.
So it still has like talent.
Okay, it's super interesting.
Yeah,
because it's written as like a college movie, like an R-rated comedy, and then it was like kind of meshed and readapted into like a kids film, which is why, have you seen the first one?
Yes, I
Which
have.
is why it's like sat on an island and it's all like college kids
spring breaking,
because that's what it's supposed to be, and it's like I read this like piece by Jeffrey Scones, and it mentions it as like an American indie film. Which is like I find it fascinates me. I have so much to say about Scooby-Doo 2.
Please keep going. I'm very intrigued.
It's just super interesting. Like the way that it tonally is so bizarre. Yeah, because it's like an American indie film, and then it's like.
But it's attached to this like global
kids franchise, right?
And then
kids
franchise.
There's this like address of children, but then also it makes fun of its own address of children, and then like there's also like. Loads of really great representation of women in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's this whole thing where it opens with the Daphne character being like kidnapped or whatever, and then she's like, "I'm gonna learn taekwondo," and then she does. And and it's like it's just mad. Those movies are an acid trip. Like,
I need to revisit that.
Yeah, right. That'd revisit them like with a really like critical, esteemed mind.
Oh, I will. Yeah,
and really over academicize and over analyze everything, and you'll have an amazing time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Who would have thought we would have gotten into Scooby-Doo too?
I bring it up every
probably you would.
Yeah. I actually planned to bring it up at some point.
I did want to talk and kind of move our discussion to more broad concepts, but creativity and art is kind of the central premise of this show. Like, what are people's processes, and what do people consider art and not art? Just to start, do you consider yourself a creative person? And the reason I ask, I think it's a good question, but also people have weird answers to this. People that you'd think were typically creative are like, oh, no. But what do you consider yourself creative?
Yes, but I can see why people have like a refrain, because I feel like I don't have any of the like credentials to support it, which is obviously so stupid and definitely not real, because anyone can be a creative person. But then you have this like gatekeeping thing where you're like, not everyone could be a creative person, because you don't want it to be this like free for all, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like a competitive market.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of interesting concepts in that sentence. Yeah, you've got this creative competition because where the gatekeeping exists, and then also this whole idea of like whether everyone can be creative versus like a select people, because like historically creativity has been seen as this like individual sport where you get a couple creative geniuses. You get the Leonardos or the Galileos or whatever other Italian names I can think of. Is Galileo Italian? I have
no idea.
But more so, the closer you look at creativity, you look at improv, it's collaborative, it's social, it's multiple people, it's not a singular person locked in a room.
Exactly.
And then, this whole concept of gatekeeping and competition. Anyways, let's break this down. I assume you're in the more like collaborative social camp of improv creativity, that you think it's more along connections, or do you think it is more of an individual, like inward looking thing?
I think, I mean, like the whole thing is that, and I'm like obviously reluctant to talk about it with complete ease, because obviously like I'm trying to be. But this is the thing, like I am a creative insofar as I do creative endeavors, and I like am in performances, shows and stuff, and obviously like the level of professionalism doesn't change the fact that they are like creative.
Sure, yeah.
Like anyone that's been in a school play is to some degree like a creative, right?
Yeah.
But like I suppose I would view it more as like a collaborative thing, just because I just believe in like lifting people up. And like internal tortured artist narrative is a bit unhealthy, I think. It
is super unhealthy. There's a lot of discourse within like studies of creativity that there's or studies of creativity have highlighted discourse about like you need to have suffered to be creative. And to a certain extent that's true. You need some sort of inspiration, but I don't know. I don't really know the answer. Do you think that's true? It seems problematic to me.
I think it's problematic, and I think also like when people view like creative endeavors as like an all the all, Well, because, not to be political, but I feel like going into the creative industries, you cannot have like a capitalist-based mindset, right? Like, it just is not, it doesn't work. Because you're not going to make any money, and you're going to be miserable, and you're hopefully not going to be working for like any sort of business with a, like, you know, CEO or something.
Right.
And so I think when people are like, oh, it's all be all, and that idea of like, you don't want to say anyone that can be a creative is a creative because you want to gatekeep and you don't want it to be all for all. But then like when you start viewing it like a competition, it completely defeats why you would want to do it in the first place. And I think, like, for example, I was like, oh, I don't want to talk about improv really like esteemedly because obviously I'm not like a professional paid improver, but at the same time, like, what would be the difference between me talking about it and someone who, you know, is paid to do improv?
Right.
Not on the perspective of maybe experience or talent or like a concept of the professional world, but more like just in the literal side of like the creative, you know?
Well, exactly. And so far, this show is focused on mostly amateurs. And I don't mean that in a way to like critique any of my past guests. It's one part of the limitation of the show, we being a student show,
right,
and access to students. But also it's fascinating because any professional talent creative has gone through an amateur phase. And so really what we're doing is like intercepting the creative process and being like, hey, you're on your way somewhere creatively. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. And there's value in that. There's not value in like hindsight all the time. There's value in looking at it while it's happening.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like a time capsule, isn't it? Like, yeah, like all the people you're interviewing are hopefully going somewhere. Hopefully. I hope I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting it will be interesting to listen back and hear what I thought
for sure.
about
what
I made. You know?
Yeah, and not to mention like just the process itself, like getting your thoughts while you're doing it. Yeah, it was really interesting. One thing, I can't remember what you said that highlighted this, but you were talking about school plays, and this idea that everyone's creative in a sense and can be creative. There is, so in defining creativity among academics, a common definition is novelty plus value equals creativity. Now, a lot of people would say a school play doesn't have much value, might not even be that novel, but still something is being created. Another kind of concept that comes into these definitions is this idea of recognition being important to creativity. That being said, I'm talking too much. I want to get back to you. If you write the Bible in a black closet and then leave it there, has creativity taken place, or does it need to be observed? It's like Schrodinger's cat, if you know that concept.
Is it dead, you know? Is
the
cat dead?
Yeah. Is that creative? Instinctually, I say yes, but also like, if nobody ever sees it, how do we even know it's creative?
I would say it's creative because, I mean, I'm just a big believer in like complete lack of regard for anyone or like holding anyone in reverence. And for me, like, I like this idea of value or surrounding. Yeah,
so you disagree with the value.
I disagree. Like, I feel like that you can measure value and you can think something has more value than something else, but at the same time, like, nothing really has implicit value. So, just like the best way to live, especially in regards to creative endeavors, is like just let anyone do anything, you know?
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe I'm not like describing that in the best way, but like,
no, it makes sense.
Right. Like, to me, I just. Because I have just such a disregard for like, not disregard, I have disrespect for institutions and like nepotism and you know, monetary connections that have helped people get into creative positions. It's like, I just honestly feel like the complete antidote to that is being like, that 5-year-old that just was in a nativity play and played Joseph, that was a creative endeavor, you know? He made choices with his performance. Because, like, why not? Who cares? Nothing is lost or gained from, like, that level of like, openness to, like, I just feel like tightness on it is completely pointless. And, like, as for the Bible thing, you know, like, someone like Franz Kafka, who wrote, like, a bunch of books and then died, and then those books were read after it, like, posthumously. It's like, it didn't obviously have any impact on you know, I'm sure we all have family members that just paint for fun.
Right.
And then no one sees it but, like, close family members. And it's like, it's still an expression, isn't it?
Sure.
It's
Still
has it worth, even if it's just... I mean, and also, like, the person... If you wrote a Bible in a dark room, the person that wrote it would have seen it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe I just have a bit of, like, an anarchist view of it.
I will challenge you a little bit, because this whole concept of value and, like, what is value and what is not... How do we assign creativity then? Like, who is more creative than, like, certainly, maybe this isn't true, maybe you'll disagree with me, but certainly someone that's a bit practiced in writing is a bit more creative than, you know, a child writing their first haiku.
Yeah.
What's the difference? I would understand that to be like understanding of the platform and the tools and knowing how to write quote unquote more valuable things than this 5-year-old. It seems to me, just to me, that value does play into it quite a bit in terms of like what is more creative than like in measuring creativity against one another. But maybe you disagree with like comparing creativity.
I feel like maybe instead of value, it's like meaning.
Okay, yeah.
And like if like an adult was writing a poem or something and had like a massive understanding of the you know, syntax and form and all this stuff, and then a child wrote a haiku, as you say, like value, it would be difficult to measure, but meaning maybe because, you know, there would be more at play in the expert's poem and less at play in the child's poem. I don't know, it's like meaning obviously is so different to different people. But
no,
like,
yeah, that's an interesting way to turn it around, because like a child can only put so much meaning into something.
Yeah, and like wouldn't be doing anything like subtextually probably. And,
yeah.
wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be some sort of great metaphor about, you know, the depression or something.
Yeah.
But like in terms of value, it still has value to different people.
Sure.
I guess a good example is like awards. Like how do you feel about awards as like a concept? Like the Oscars, for example.
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's hard to say, right? Because it does help kind of reward novelty, which and creativity, I think, does need to be rewarded to encourage creativity, right? Because if someone writes their magnum opus in a dark room and it never gets highlighted, they'll probably not ever write one again. And so I see awards as like a way of encouraging creativity. And this kind of goes to a broader point of creativity being good, and that it is, and again, going back to this value thing, and that it is valuable. Like, the more creative people we have in society, the more creative solutions we have to problems society faces, which are inherently valuable. So, again, going back to awards, it's tricky, right? I think it helps encourage creativity, but it's so easy to get into a lane where it's like you're just rewarding the end circle as opposed to rewarding actual new creativity.
Yeah, because it's like, I feel like two things that you said that were interesting about like it needs to be rewarded. I feel like film is a good example of that because it's so implicitly like mechanical and monetized, and it like requires money and it requires equipment. It's not like a book, you know, anyone could write a book.
Yeah.
But literally now anyone can, if they wanted to, start writing a book. But like a film is one of the few mediums where it's like, no, you would need a certain set of equipment.
Right.
And like people will say stuff like, oh, well, you know, nowadays you can film a film on an iPhone. It's like, okay, but that's such a middle class perspective on life, because not everyone has an iPhone.
Yeah.
And also, even if you did, like, what an assumption that you'd upload your hour-long film on your iPhone to YouTube and you would win an award at South by Southwest, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the awards and this kind of element, it keeps it like this financial machine going, which is problematic, but at the same time, like, you need money for it to...
Right.
Which is why I talked about that in my talk. Like, I don't understand why people are so downplaying on film, both as an industry, but also as a creative medium, because it's like, oh my god, like Avengers Endgame, for example. I'm not saying that's an artistic piece of cinema, but it made like $1 billion.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
If you look at just the creative industries in London, there's a famous report on how much it contributes to the economy.
Yeah, I mean, the like creative arts or like entertainment industry is the fastest growing employer in this country, or
yeah.
at least it was when I graduated high school.
Yeah,
because that's what I was like. Oh, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But like it is like it's such a growing thing because people are just constantly consuming entertainment, and so. But yeah, I mean, I have a problem with the Oscars more so just from like a impact. Like identity politics thing, you know, like
for sure,
you know, like for example, if someone makes a queer film and it breaks every rule in the book, and then they still run a fat Oscar campaign, it's completely defeating the point of the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think you make a really valid point that like you have to reward creativity to like,
and it's not even rewarding per se, but like going back to that idea of recognition, like it's not rewarding, it's recognizing that it exists. So and exposing it, really, because like if a film never gets watched, who's it going to impact? It's not going to impact anyone,
right?
And yeah, while it might be a creative endeavor, it's not going to like go past that creativity to become something even more than it is. And
also, they're just useful because they sort of infer the like status quo of just what's popular at any given time, you know? Yeah. No, the Oscars are an interesting microcosm. Like on one hand, it's like this industry award show, but on the other hand, it's like marketing for these films, and then it's so many weird things going on. So many weird things. Televised
for the entire world to see.
Yeah, well, because I feel like all the awards are like weird, but the Oscars has this weird edge over everything else, because it's like, for example, like when that year where Shape of Water won Best Picture, and it was just like, what? Like, I love that movie, but what the hell? Like, that's so random.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest institution of film, like, awards on the planet, and they gave Best Picture to a movie about like a woman having intercourse with a fish, to put it bluntly. And like, I love the movie, but like, what a rogue choice. And then the next year, or however many years it's been, something like Green Book wins.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a bonkers institution. I have no idea
It's very strange.
Who's making the choices.
Popular vote among hidden people.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very strange. Anyways, we're almost out of time here. I have 2 questions left for you, which I like to ask everyone. What profession, let's say you don't go into film, or don't go into comedy, what profession could you possibly see yourself falling into where these skills would be like neat and valuable and cool?
Maybe like some form of like teaching, or or like, I don't know, like I feel like teaching is a good example, but on a more like lecture-y basis rather than like high school teachery, because it's like I feel like the things you get from like performing, it's just sort of invaluable public speaking.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It's a very obvious answer, but like I can't really see anything else. I mean, at this point, I definitely think whatever I do is going to be incorporating like talking at people.
Yeah.
I just don't know about what yet.
Yeah. Very neat. Very neat. I think similarly. I got the chance to teach for a year on like a grant program, and it's weird how many like itches it scratches.
Yeah.
Like of the performance variety, because you're on stage in front of an audience and you're engaging, and it's interesting. But yeah, I can see that. I can see that with you. And then my final question. I like to end this for everyone, and we've already kind of covered this, but what book / TV / movie / whatever would you recommend to our audience members today to check out after? We've talked about Shape of Water. We've talked about all these radio shows. We've talked about music. Give something left field. We've also talked about Scooby-Doo.
Okay, so I am a massive Twin Peaks fan.
Okay.
And my gut reaction is Twin Peaks always, but I feel like I shouldn't say it because it's too obvious. So let me think of something I've been listening to recently that is weird, and then that might be a good...
Take your time.
Okay, yeah, here's left field. There's a Soul Wax album, and they're like a French band, started doing rock, forayed into techno. And they have this album called Closer to Paradise, and it's like a series of interviews with people living on this like tropical island. And then it's set to music, but it's really like, I find it
fascinating.
Because it's like, not only is it like a banger, but it's like it just bottles, like it completely bottles that. You can hear it in their voice and you can hear it in the music, and I'm really fascinated with it, and I keep listening to it because it's like, I can't describe it. Just listen to it.
Is there an album name for that?
It's called, let me find it. It's called Closer to Paradise. I think there's one song and then all the interviews.
Got it. Okay, Soul Wax, Closer to Paradise.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, they interviewed like 4 people, and then it's just, and it's short. Rather than give you like a fat TV show to go watch, listen to this like 5-minute song and you're done.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know it's early, but we covered a lot of ground.
I know.
Super interesting stuff. We went in real deep on this episode.
I know.
But yeah, I appreciate it. And to our listeners, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank the maker.
Thank you.